Welcome to another episode of Times and Tides. Today for our discussion, we have a famous scientist, an internationally well-known conservationist, an author, a photographer, and a policy decision maker or a policy influencer, Dr. Sukumar from the Indian Institute of Science. I have a lot to talk about Sukumar, but before that, let us welcome him. Sukumar, welcome to this show. Thank you for making your time. And I will like to now suggest that we will discuss today on the theme that is very close to your heart, on humans and elephants.
Thank you very much, Ganeshaiah, for having me on the show. Let me see if I can do justice to your questions.
We will. Dr. Sukumar is in the National Science Chair at the Indian Institute of Science. He is well known outside as an elephant man. He has written 4 books on elephants. He has more than 200 publications to his credit on not only elephants but on range of issues that includes wildlife biology, wildlife conservation, climate change, plants, dynamics of forests. But his main focus throughout his life is on elephants. I can say he has dedicated his life to elephants. He also is the vice chair of Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, a prestigious position. One of the reasons perhaps why he has been chosen as a vice chair is because he has been in this committee almost for the past 4 decades or 3 to 4 decades. And I should also add here that his contribution to this panel was mainly responsible or significantly responsible for the Nobel Prize that committee got for its report in 2007. Sukumar's contribution has been considerably appreciated for this report, for this award of Nobel Prize. And so, though Sukumar per se may not be a Nobel laureate, he has been associated with this awards contributions through the panel's report. He has got number of awards and recognitions all over the world, but to quote just one among them is the Cosmos Award from Japan. In addition to that, he is also driving the policies of the conservation all over the country. He is helping our government in all possible ways to now improve the policy decisions on conservation. He was for almost 3 decades a member of Asia's special group on elephants. He was also the chair of that association for long. As I told, there is much more that I can speak on Sukumar, but for the time being, we will start our discussion. Sukumar, welcome again.
Yeah, thank you, Ganeshaiah.
Now, let me start our discussion with perhaps 3 aspects of evolution of elephants. The first question I would like to ask you is about how did this idea of your love to elephants and your interest in elephants itself evolved. But before you start, I like to now perhaps put across the message that you have given in your book, that you were triggered or inspired by this one specific image on the stone panel in Mamallapuram near Chennai, where you spent your childhood. You write that this particular image, which is almost a perfect representation of the Indian elephant, was one among the reasons. Can you explain on that and your childhood and what actually led you to your interest in elephants?
You know, it's very easy for us to say that the elephant is always in our psyche, in the Indian psyche. You know, you see elephants in a temple, you go on the streets and you see an elephant sort of walking, with a mahout on its back and so on. I certainly think that the Mamallapuram elephant, the bas relief called Arjuna's, as part of Arjuna's penance, possibly played some role. Now looking back at it, because, I grew up in Chennai and, occasionally on Sundays our parents would take us to Mamallapuram for a picnic. And there is this magnificent bas relief of an elephant herd there, which in hindsight to me, the most perfect elephant ever sculpted by any human anywhere in the world. That bull elephant, the tusker, out in the front, is in must. It is more perfectly sculpted than any real elephant in the wild. But if I think back a little more deeply, I think what really triggered my interest in elephants may actually have been seeing the twin calves being born or just after birth during my very first visit to Mudumalai on the way to Ooty. And when we were on a family trip to from Mysore to Ooty, Udagamandalam, we were in Tappakadu. I remember it was May 1971. It was very gloomy and cloudy, like the rainy season that what we are experiencing right now. And there was a crowd along the road at Tappakadu. So we stopped and we inquired what it was. And they said that a captive elephant called Devaki had given birth to twin calves. There were two young male elephants. And those male elephants were, the twin calves were named as Vijay and Sujay, respectively. And twinning in elephants is very, very rare. Because we saw those elephants, we went on to Ooty, we stayed there, and then we came back to Bangalore and went back to Chennai. But I think that probably made a lasting impression upon me.
The fact that you remember the name of the mother and the two twin males that are born even after, let us say, 50 years, certainly suggests that it has influenced you a lot. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that, in some sense, a lot of my life I have spent in Mudumalai. I have the Mudumalai, the Tappakadu elephant camp, which has become very famous now, after the documentary, The Elephant Whisperers, which got the Oscar, was kind of shot there. But this elephant camp actually has a hoary tradition of being one of the best elephant camps which in the world. It's if you look at the welfare of the elephants in this camp, decades ago it was recognized that these elephants had a better welfare than elephants in the best zoo in the Western world.
I see.
So I have spent a lot of time working in Mudumalai, both at the elephant camp as well as in the forests of Mudumalai and so on. And therefore,
so all this brought you to your PhD on elephants. I read again in one of your books that you were driving to Udakamandalam from Mysore with Lahiri and Madhav Gadgil, perhaps during your PhD or after your PhD, and there was a discussion that went on between Lahiri and Madhav, and you made up your mind to now write a book on elephants, their culture, their importance in culture, civilization. Can you go back to that time and tell us what exactly happened during that trip?
Yeah, that drive was in September 1986. This was after I had finished my PhD on the elephant. And we were driving from Bangalore to Ooty, where we were going for the inauguration of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, in which Professor Gadgil and I had played some role in designing the Biosphere Reserve. And on the way, Professor Lahiri Chowdhury from Kolkata, Professor of English, and Professor Gadgil had a very animated conversation about the historical past of the Indian elephant. And it was a very, very insightful conversation. We had a very, very long drive. And I think I observed a lot of, what they said. And I realized that, what a rich history that we have had in terms of the elephant-human relationship. Whether good, bad or ugly. We have it has happened over the past several thousand years. And this could be perhaps worth writing an entire volume on it. And given my interest in photography, whenever I traveled, both within India, outside India, I used to visit monuments, I used to visit museums, I used to record depictions of elephants in art, in sculpture, and so on and so forth. And then, many decades later, I finally put all this together. After, of course, you had to also go through ancient texts about references from the Greek sources to the Sanskrit sources, the Tamil Sangam literature, and so on and so forth. And then I wrote this volume on the
I
history
could very
of the
well,
elephant. Yeah.
I could very well gauge the amount of effort you have put in behind that book, the story of Asian elephants. But also justifiably, it's good that you have recorded that event that actually inspired you to now write this book. Now, coming back to that, you will come on to your efforts in collecting this data all over the world later. Coming back to the evolution, so that's how the idea or your love to elephants evolved. Suppose we want to now spend some time on the evolution of elephants itself, let us say for our viewers. Can you now succinctly tell when actually elephants began to evolve on this planet?
You know, when you talk about elephants, you talk about what a zoological order that we call proboscidea.
Okay.
Animals
Which have the proboscis.
with other proboscis or the trunk.
Okay.
Obviously, the trunk was not very long in the ancient creatures. They were very, very small, almost incipient proboscidea,
Okay.
proboscis. And this evolution possibly goes back about 60 million years.
Okay.
You know, this is after the decline of the dinosaurs. If you go back to the ancient Tethys Sea in northern Africa, you had a very aquatic kind of an environment, very shallow seas, in which you get creatures. There is Phosphatherium, there is Merytherium, which is actually pretty well known, which have characters that a lot of paleontologists have realized were kind of the ancestral forms of the entire radiation of the proboscideans, which eventually gives rise to the modern day elephants.
So, in other words, around 60 million years ago, the seed of the elephant is now taken birth, which means, as you rightly told, it's after the disappearance of the dinosaurs.
Right.
The new dinosaurs or the new giant animals seem to have arisen after the disappearance. So, does it have anything to do with this mass extinction that happened during that period?
No, I think the mass extinction that happened sort of opened up a lot of niches now.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the mammals, for instance, were able to radiate after that because the dinosaurs are reptiles.
Okay.
Now you had the emergence of mammals that are now able to take over the world, and at the same time, essentially the proboscideans, which are herbivores, they became larger and larger in size, and pretty early on in the evolution, you had quite gigantic animals. Like you had Merytherium, you had Dinotherium, and Gomphotherium, and so on and so forth, which are pretty large animals. They were gigantic animals.
Okay.
So they were able to now exploit a certain resource, possibly initially aquatic plants, and then later on, terrestrial plants, which are now available in plenty for them, and they grew very large in body size.
So, let us say 60 million years ago, the long proboscis animals began to arise. Suppose if one is interested to know when actually our Indian elephant, Elephas maxima, perhaps evolved. How many millions of years ago?
See, again, you have to think about when did the elephant family evolve, the family Elephantidae.
Okay.
Now, the family Elephantidae evolved in Africa. The true elephants comprise of Loxodonta, which is the African elephant, which has remained in Africa. It includes Mammuthus, which is the mammoth, which also evolved in Africa and then came out of Africa and immigrated to to the northern hemisphere. And then it includes the genus Elephas, which is the Indian elephant or Asian elephant, which also evolved in Africa. So all these evolved possibly about 7 million years ago. In the root of the elephant family, they evolved in Africa about 7 million years ago, and then they radiated. The Elephas, the Asian elephant, which is an ancestral form, not the present Elephas maximus, came into Asia perhaps about 2 million years ago, called Elephas reki, and then underwent a lot of other changes and so on and so forth before it gave rise to Elephas maximus. If you take Elephas maximus itself, we don't know when Elephas maximus evolved.
Approximately?
We don't know.
I won't hold you on to the exact date, but approximately.
It could be anywhere between 20,000 years
Ah.
and maybe 100,000 years. That's the best date that we
Oh,
have.
I see. That
Yeah.
means, in other words, they have evolved with the humans, Homo sapiens, almost.
They possibly evolved after Homo
My
sapiens
God,
evolved in
I
Africa.
see. So they're more recent and younger than Homo sapiens or human beings.
As a species,
I
we
follow,
had the
yeah.
ancestral form
That's
Elephas
fine.
hysatricus,
Yeah.
but Elephas maximus itself,
Okay.
the evolution might be as late as 20,000 years ago, maybe
God.
at best 50,000 years ago.
Let us say even 100,000 years. That's a time when Homo sapien also was taking shape. Humans also were taking shape.
Absolutely.
I also heard about a species called Stegodon ganesa. Obviously, that attracted it does attract everyone's attention because the species is Ganesa. Why it is called Ganesa and what is this Stegodon? Where does it fall? It falls below Elephas maximus or earlier to Elephas maximus or
The Stegodon is a branch from, it branched off much earlier
Acha.
than the true elephants did.
So it's the great grandparent of our Asian elephant.
It is a completely separate branch.
I see. Okay.
And stegodons evolved, much earlier. Stegodons were giant elephants, but they were browsers. If you look at the teeth of stegodon, they are equipped for browsing, a browsing diet, feeding on shrubs and trees and so on and so forth. Whereas Elephas maximus has dental, if you look at the teeth, they are more evolved for feeding on grasses,
Acha.
as compared to Stegodon. So Stegodon is a completely different lineage altogether. Now, Stegodon, it had an enormous pair of tusks. And Stegodon fossils are very common. In fact, you don't find Elephas maximus fossils. Hardly you find them.
Because maybe it's very recent.
Maybe very recent deposits are very difficult to,
Okay.
but not preserved or whatever. But Stegodon fossils are available in plenty in South Asia and Southeast Asia. And Stegodons had very, very big tusks. But your question about Stegodon Ganeshaiah,
Yeah.
I have never thought about it before.
Acha.
But let me hazard a guess.
Okay.
Okay. I think, maybe somebody discovered a Stegodon skull with one tusk intact and another tusk broken.
Oh, so.
Perhaps that person,
Okay.
named it as Stegodon Ganesha.
Ganesa.
Perhaps. That's my.
Okay.
That's
But
the
someone
guess.
who discovered is not an Indian.
I don't know who
don't
discovered
know. Okay.
Stegodon Ganesha.
Yeah. I also remember have read that Stegodon Ganesa, as you rightly told, has very long tusks. What could be the reason? Is it simply, we'll come to sexual selection and all that little later, but why is that they had such a long tusks?
See, this again goes back to the question of what is the role that tusks have played in the life of an elephant or elephant-like creatures, the proboscideans overall. I think in the course of evolution, tusks were used for feeding. So you had, creatures which had small tusks, shovel-like tusks that actually helped it to scoop up aquatic plants, maybe feed more efficiently, and so on and so forth. Okay. It probably started off with that. But then an enormous pair of tusks, it is of no use for feeding.
Costly.
It's more like a display. It is extremely costly to develop. Therefore, these tusks have obviously kind of become larger and larger during time periods in the Earth's geological history when there has been sufficient productivity of the vegetation.
No dearth of resources.
No dearth of resources that can actually, where the elephant-like creature can now kind of divert a lot of its energy to the growth of tusks and use that as a display.
Okay.
So tusks, I think, have evolved mainly as, they're not even very good weapons of war, of battle, unless they are relatively
They might only
medium-sized.
help in fighting with other male.
To some extent, but a very long tusks are a handicap.
We'll come to that. Later. Now, we were discussing on the evolution of elephant. You also write on the Indian mythological version of evolution of elephants. From a golden egg, son having born. I'm sure the viewers will be interested to know that version of evolution.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten exactly what I've written, but it is sort of central to our mythology.
Okay.
That
what I read, I think you have written is the following: that Brahma created sun from a golden egg, and after the sun was created, there were two shells of the eggs. from the right side of the shell, he created Airavata and 7 male elephants. And from the left side of the egg, or left hand shell of the egg, he created 8 female elephants, and they are the source of
and
all.
they were winged creatures. They could fly
Oh.
at one time.
Oh, I see.
They could fly at one time.
Acha.
And then, for some reason, they troubled some ancient sages and who pronounced a curse on these winged creatures, and therefore they had to come down to earth and live on the earth or whatever. A very, very interesting mythology. But, there's a very interesting point in that mythology. It says that Brahma created elephants for the profit of kings. Okay, not for any other reason.
Okay.
So if you look at the kind of the reason why elephants were created, they were created for the welfare of the kings.
Okay.
And which itself sets us to think as to why the elephant became sacred. I think it has a very a link with why elephants became sacred. Elephants became really coveted by our ancient chieftains and kings and so on.
In fact, that was my next perhaps inquisition into you. How is that this elephant became a god or evolved into a god?
If you look at, I think we need to go back to when the elephant was tamed. Okay, at some stage, accidental or otherwise, elephants were tamed to some extent by the Harappan cultures about 4,000 plus years ago. And then maybe starting at about 3,000 years ago, some of our ancient texts talk about the use of elephants. So you have the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, where elephants are used. Some of it is exaggerated, but definitely by that time the elephants are being used, actively, are being used maybe as a beast, just as a beast of burden, or being used as an instrument of war. By about the Buddhist period, you get the concept of the sacred elephant. And definitely,
the white elephant.
And so during this period, if you look at, I would say the first millennium BCE, you will find the evolution of the elephant from just being a beast of burden to becoming an instrument of war. And by about the 2,300 years ago, the evidence is that kings captured elephants in very large numbers for use in their armies. And therefore, the kings now covet elephants. They start coveting elephant habitats because they want those habitats to be protected, because they want to draw upon a supply for elephants to be used in their armies. So the elephant now becomes a very useful creature, useful to royalty, useful to the kings, and even to the common man to a certain extent, because as people started populating the Indo-Gangetic basin, clearing of forests, raising of settlements, the elephant became an extremely useful creature. And I think that possibly played a certain role in eventually defining the sacredness of the elephant.
Okay. So in other words, from a malevolent elephant, man began to find its use and began to depend on the elephant, and so it became a very good asset for his own survival, and so he began to revere it and worship it. That's the way.
Well, I'll put it this way. I mean, if you really look at the origin of the sacred elephant, it goes back to Buddhism.
Okay.
The sacred white elephant. Queen Maya had a dream that a sacred white elephant descended from heaven, entered her womb, and 9 months later she gives birth to Gautama Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama, who becomes a Buddha eventually. So the concept of a sacred elephant is already enshrined in Buddhism. It is there in the Jataka tales. The Bodhisattva elephant appears as a Bodhisattva, several times, and so on and so forth. So all that is very much a part of Buddhist history. At some stage, the elephant becomes sacred in Hinduism. In the form of Lord Ganesha. So Lord Ganesha, now during this intervening period, now the earliest sculptural depiction of Lord Ganesha, as we know the classical Ganesha that we know today, is approximately 5th century or so, during the Kushan period, from north central India. So you had a 1,000-year period where the elephant, which was defined as, which was had become sacred in Buddhism, now also becomes sacred in Hinduism, but in a different form. In a very different form. So half elephant and half man. It's a different kind of a concept. And if you ask me, if you really look at our historical sources, you find that historians have said that, the very name Vigna Raja, Vinayaka, and so on, actually has the meaning of somebody who's a creator of obstacles. Today we know Ganesha as a remover of obstacles.
Yeah.
But in those days, the real root, the etymology of the word Vigna Raja and so on is kind of the, kind of creator of G.S. Guri, a historian, for instance, is very, very clear. He says the antecedents of the present day Ganesha, are epithets that relate to that these are this particular deity is somebody who can create problems for you. And that's not very difficult for us to imagine. Why? Because elephants can go and come and destroy crops, they can kill people, and ever since the dawn of agriculture, and therefore elephant would have been troublesome to humans for a very long time. And then over a period of time, what I surmise, this is obviously speculation.
Yeah.
Kings now are coveting the elephants for use in their armies. So for the king, the elephant is more useful alive, than dead. And over a period of time, if you look at the spread of civilization in northern India, the Indo-Gangetic plains, elephants were completely eliminated. So if you look at, this ancient India, when you had the spread of civilization across the Gangetic basin, elephants were completely eliminated from that region over a period of several hundred years. But the elephant was still very, very useful and coveted by the kings of ancient times. And therefore, I would think that the elites of ancient Indian society, the chieftains, the kings and the rulers, perhaps aided by the priests, now, in some brilliant, I would say a flash of inspiration, now came up with an icon, a half elephant, half man, which kind of defined the sacred elephant of Hinduism, and as a counter to perhaps the ascendancy of Hinduism over Buddhism.
Number one,
I might be stretching the argument a bit, but perhaps that happened.
Yeah, and also possibly that will give a kind of protection to the elephant, because elephants are now required by the king for his thing. And that in fact, is the reason why I always was bothering about one question. Elephant is such a huge animal with so much of meat, but it's generally not considered as a source of meat, from the wild. So in other words, perhaps this reverence or the respect given sometime in the past might have now led to abandoning it as a source of meat. Would you agree with that?
No, see, I would sort of go back to another very important text, Kautilya Arthasastra.
Okay.
Kautilya Arthasastra, I don't know, date is controversial, but still at least 2000 years plus. Kautilya Arthasastra exhorts the king to set up Gajavanas for the protection of elephants.
Okay.
And these Gajavanas are described all over the country, except in the extreme south. The Mauryans did not have any knowledge of the extreme south of the country, where elephants were found.
Yeah.
These Gajavanas were to be protected because they were a source of elephants for the king's armies. Kautilya is very, very clear. He says, impose the death penalty on anyone killing an elephant in a Gajavana.
There you see your point comes. That is, there was that imposition of saving the elephant, which perhaps is a movement towards viewing it as a god.
Absolutely.
So he had established Gajavanas.
He had established Gajavanas. At least he exhorted the king to establish Gajavanas in ancient times.
That means the elephant capturing or kedda was there as early as 2000.
Certainly. If you go to the Greek sources, Megasthenes and others, Megasthenes was the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. He gives detailed descriptions about how the elephants were captured in ancient India. So, but you had two methods. The northern method was the capture of elephants in the keddas or in the stockade, where you drive entire herds and then you put them into stockades. And you kind of close the gates and then you go in and tame these herds. In the south, people captured elephants by digging pits, camouflaging the pits.
Okay.
And then the elephant would come and fall into the pit, and then
Okay.
they would then haul the elephant out of the pit and then use it.
Okay.
So the elephants were captured in very, very different ways, depending on whether culturally they were different in the north and the northeast compared to the south of the country.
Yeah, the way you are explaining how elephant from conflictor animal became the god seem to also parallel some arguments that are also provided for the for the respect that we have developed in India for the cow. Cows once upon a time was perhaps being hunted, but gradually as its importance in agriculture became very relevant, so it was important that for its milk and farmyard manure it produces, and for the drought purpose in the monsoons that it offers to the farmers, so it began to be worshipped. And so the cow slaughtering also was perhaps driven by the societal requirements, just as you say.
No, absolutely. I think animals that we consider to be sacred, to be used, are those that are useful to humans.
Right.
And the cow is certainly an animal that has nourished human populations, much more than almost any other animal species has done. Both in terms of providing milk and providing manure for the fields, in ploughing the fields for agriculture. I think Marvin Harris has a wonderful essay on this.
What does he say?
Well, essentially he says that in ancient times, he is an anthropologist, Marvin Harris. He says that he has written an essay called The Origin of the Sacred Cow, in which he says that the cow was the mainstay of Indian agriculture, for hundreds of years. But agriculture was at the mercy of the vagaries of the Indian monsoon.
Okay.
And sometimes the monsoons would fail, and the farmers could be tempted to slaughter the cow and eat the meat. But farmers who restrained themselves from killing the cow, but took a long-term view and waited for the rains to come back. And then they had the oxen to plough the fields. So and they were then eventually better off.
They were successful in harvesting the crop than those who did.
Absolutely, those who took a short-term view, who
so
probably
this might
suffered.
have fed back into the society and.
Absolutely. I mean, India has been, if you go back to 2000 years ago, India was one of the most densely populated region of the world.
And agriculture dependent.
And agriculture dependent. And probably the estimates of the population of India was, even in northern India, if you take, was something like 50 to 100 million people at that time itself. Probably the most dense place in the world.
Okay. Now that you told about how elephants were captured and became to be used, I was particularly attracted by one sentence you write in one of your books. As people captured elephants, the wild elephant became a domestic elephant. And as domestic elephants began to be now pictured in the arts and sculptures, the domestic elephants was replaced by the the sentence. That to me was very attractive, and eventually even the evolution of the godly elephant replaced the. Right. What actually made you to write the sentence? It's very attractive sentence.
Right. See, you go to a state like Rajasthan, you get these wonderful paintings, murals, where you have the elephant being depicted. You have sculptures, you have monuments, and you have sculptures in which the elephant is depicted in all its glory. But elephants disappeared from that part of India, probably a couple of thousand years ago, maybe even earlier. The elephants have disappeared from
in
that.
The Rajasthan, Gujarat.
The Rajasthan region, obviously, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, all those areas, elephants were certainly there in some parts except the desert region. But elephants were coveted by the kings. So elephants were still captured. Elephants that were captured in other parts of India were obviously supplied to kings in those areas who used them in war, battle, and so on and so forth. So the elephant has always been raised to the heights of some kind of an icon, a royal icon, a royal mount. And the elephant is glorified, even though the wild elephant has disappeared from these regions.
Achha.
And therefore, the image of the elephant has continued to survive, for many, many generations after that. Because it's such an awe-inspiring icon. If you really look at a majestic elephant, and if you really look at the depiction of the elephant in art, you will find that it's usually the tusked elephant that is depicted. Elephant with a good pair of tusks. You have what is called as in Sanskrit as the Kumariya Bandh. The Kumariya Band is a barrel-shaped elephant, which is an excellent body condition. It is the elephant that was prized for use in warfare, for capture and use in warfare, and that was a royal mount. And and therefore the elephant is kind of raised to such a heights in terms of being a cultural icon that its imagery, its conscious, in our consciousness, the elephant has continued to survive in areas, much after the elephant has disappeared from these regions.
Okay. While you describe elephant as a very majestic animal, because I know you love elephant, I'm sure it must have been a very scary image for the people who came from Macedonia. You also write about that, I think the listeners of this podcast will be interested to know what actually happened when Alexander came. Is it really true that elephants scared him away? Or what is the truth?
Yeah. Again, I'm going back to the Greek sources. We know that when Alexander came down from the Hindu Kush mountains, he encountered King Puru or Porus, who had about 200 elephants with him apparently. But in the battle, he fielded 80 elephants.
Okay.
Because the other elephants may have been young elephants, not suited for use in war itself. Now, it's interesting to know that Alexander also acquired elephants before he came to the Jhelum. When he came to India, Not many people know this.
Exactly.
Alexander probably had 100 elephants with him. Now, there is no mention of the use of those elephants in battle, for whatever reason.
May I stop here for a moment?
Please.
Where did he got those elephants from?
See, by that time, there is a big trade in elephants. Even though Alexander is coming down from the Hindu Kush mountains, from Afghanistan into present-day Pakistan and all that into the subcontinent, many of the chieftains there already had elephants, and they offer elephants to him as tribute.
This is surprising. The idea generally we are all carrying is that Alexander came and his army saw those huge beastly animals, and so they were afraid of coming into India. They decided to go back. Please go ahead.
So if you really read the ancient sources properly, and there is a historian called Scullard who has written a wonderful book on the elephant in the Greek and Roman world, in which he has given this history. Alexander certainly had elephants with him. By the time he had not seen elephants, obviously, when he crossed Persia.
Okay.
But when he came down from the Hindu Kush mountains, many of the chieftains had elephants, and many of them offered tribute to him. So they gave him some elephants.
Achha.
So he had elephants with him when he came to the Jhelum.
Okay.
The Hydaspes. When there is this very famous battle, much written about in European history and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, in that battle, Alexander's army overcomes King Puru, defeats Puru's elephant army. Okay. The story stops there. Now, if you read the Greek sources a little carefully, now what does Alexander do? Alexander has defeated an elephant army. From the Jhelum, now they advance to the next river, further east, which is the Bias River.
Okay.
They come to the Bias River. It is the month of May. The Indian monsoon is building up. It's muggy, it is hot. It's not like the cool climes of the Hindu Kush or whatever.
Okay.
There is a revolt in Alexander's army.
Okay.
Alexander's soldiers do not want to go any further. Alexander, remember, had set his sights upon the conquest of the end of the earth.
Of the world.
And the end of the earth for him was the end of India. Because nobody knew what was there beyond India. So the end of India was the end of the earth.
Okay.
Now Alexander has hardly come into India, it's the fringes of India. Now he abandons the conquest of India for a reason. 3 or 4, apparently his soldiers revolt. His soldiers, there are rumors that have come into the camp that if the army were to advance further, they were to cross the Ganges River. There are powerful kings, much more powerful kings, waiting with hundreds of thousands of elephants to meet the army, to confront them. So it's possible that these soldiers were frightened. They overcame this elephant army with 80 elephants. But it was one thing to meet encounter 80 elephants. It's another if you are meeting 1,000 or 2,000 elephants or whatever. But Alexander, gave them 3 days time. Apparently, he sulked. The soldiers said, nothing doing. We do not want to go. So he returned back.
So in other words, perhaps historical statements that Alexander's army turned back because of elephants is true, but may not be exactly as it is being told. They were afraid of facing more elephants as they proceed into the.
Possible.
That's what you
It's
are.
very well possible. Sometimes historians have doubted whether kings across the Ganges, we had the Nandas and then the Mauryas.
Yes, Nandas was
Whether they
supposed to
could have thousands of elephants at that
Acha,
time.
okay.
I think it's very well possible. See, because the capture of elephants had already happened on a very large scale. The trade in elephants was very large scale. India even supplied elephants to the Persians. Elephants were supplied to Rome. So during that time, during that particular period, the trade in elephants was very, very extensive. So I see no reason why ancient kings like the Nandas and the Mauryas could not have a few thousand elephants in the army.
Acha. For example, how many elephants perhaps could have had been there in Nanda's?
See, the Mauryas.
I know you and I have not seen, but certainly you have dug the literature.
Well, the Greek sources, give an estimate of 3,000 to 6,000 elephants.
I see. That's a
in the armies of the
huge range.
Mauryas. Yeah.
Even if it is half of it, that must have scared Alexander.
Yeah, it could have scared
So,
Alexander.
in other words, it's perhaps right to conclude that elephant was a deterrent for this so-called great Alexander to turn back.
Well, I would certainly think that the elephant played some role
Okay, fine.
in turning Alexander back
Okay.
or his army back
Fine.
from India.
I was going through your historical documents of the role of elephants in the war. Other than Alexander's, you write on another issue where an Assyrian queen, set up some dummies of elephants. Of course, though she didn't succeed.
Semiramis.
Semiramis? Okay,
Queen
what is the
Semiramis.
story?
Oh, I think I've forgotten the story. The story is that there was this, I think she created an image of a dummy of an
Dummy
elephant
elephants, yeah.
into which the soldiers were hiding. And I've kind of forgotten the exact the story. I don't want to tell you something which is not very authentic.
No, but in
and
fact,
that scared the.
In fact,
and,
your
and
book
that was
also, in your book also you don't give too many details. So I thought maybe you know and you have not written and.
It is well known in history, but I kind of wrote this, more than 10 years ago. So I've kind of forgotten the specific details of it. Yeah.
And then you also now write the Jahangir gifted elephants to Khan, around that time. So this gifting of elephants was a practice in some sense during that time.
Gifting of elephants by the chieftains to the kings and the rulers, the emperors, I think was definitely very, very common.
Okay.
And Jahangir, if you look at the captive elephants, in the country,
Yeah.
I think it probably reached a peak during the Mughal times
Acha.
and possibly during Jahangir's time.
Uh-huh.
So there is an estimate of Jahangir having 12,000 elephants, captive elephants. That means the entire empire.
Okay.
Obviously, we didn't have all the 12,000 elephants in Delhi or wherever, but this was spread across the whole empire.
One cannot feed all of them in one place.
And interestingly, there's an estimate that he had 40,000 elephants in his kingdom. So the remaining elephants were probably wild elephants. There's probably an estimate
Acha.
that the number of elephants in the Mughal empire at that time, during Jahangir's period, was about 40,000.
It's all inclusive of the wild and domestic.
Wild and the domestic elephants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you also now start tracing about the elephants in our Indian literature, and you quote, the Shastras, Gaja Shastra, Artha Shastra. Of course, you already spoke about it, and this Hastayurveda. What is there in these? Are there biological details? Or Artha Shastra, you told there is an element of how to maintain forests for elephants and how to use them for harvesting elephants. What is there in Gaja Shastra?
See, Gaja Shastra, Artha Shastra is essentially a political document.
Okay.
It gives you prescriptions about the Gajavanas, the elephant forest. It also tells you how you field elephants in battle, in actual war. There is no hint of any sentiment in Artha Shastra.
Okay.
Elephant is useful, it has to be protected. It is an instrument of war, and therefore you need to protect elephants and elephant forests.
Okay.
Now, the Gaja Shastra is something very different. The origin of the Gaja Shastra, it goes back to a mythical sage called Palkapya.
Okay.
Palkapya is supposed to come from Lohitya, which is in the northeast, Assam, Arunachal, that particular area.
Okay.
It actually, the account of the Gajasastra starts with Palkapya appearing before the king of Anga. The king of Anga. Anga is the ancient Bihar.
Okay.
Now, prior to Palkapya's coming to the kingdom of Anga, the people of Anga have approached the king, where they make a plea with the king to go and capture the wild elephants, because the elephants have come and damaged their crops, ravaged their crop fields.
Okay.
They want relief from that. So the king of Anga, Romapada, sends out his men to go and round up the elephants and bring it to his palace grounds.
Acha. Okay.
The sage Palkapya appears before the king Romapada, and he says that, I, Palkapya, have wandered among the elephants. I know about the life of the elephant. I will relate the life history of the elephant to you. Please release these elephants back into the wild.
Wow.
He was probably the first, I would say, animal rights activist
Animal lover,
and elephant conservationist.
Acha.
Okay. So then he relates.
So he was a Sukumar of that era.
I don't know, but he was. It's a remarkable document. He gives the life history of the elephant, stage by stage. How an elephant, after birth, how does it grow, what are the behaviors it exhibits, and so on and so forth. He talks about the phenomenon of must in elephants. And there's a remarkable sentence in which, in one sentence, he describes all that we know about the behavior, the morphology, and the physiology, and the aggression of the male elephant in a single sentence.
So I am not wrong in telling Palkapya was the Sukumar of that.
Palkapya was far ahead of me in a single sentence being able to describe the must in the elephant.
Okay.
And I would say that serious studies on must in elephants began somewhere around 1970s or so, both in Africa and Asia. And what they have described, can be described in a single sentence by Palkapya. In a single sentence, he has summarized it. Now, in the course of that, obviously, a document like this tells you, because in ancient times, a lot of the knowledge about elephants came from captive elephants. Because you had hundreds of thousands of elephants in captivity. Therefore, it gives you prescriptions about how do you treat an elephant, how do you feed an elephant, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is the Gajasastra.
Okay, you told that he comes and tells, I have lived with elephants. Could it be that he actually has observed them in the wild also?
I'm sure.
Possibly.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. See, in the ancient times, if you had to come from Lohitya in Assam to Bihar, that whole place would have been full of elephants. And so obviously he is somebody who has kind of lived in the wilderness of ancient times and has observed wild elephants.
In the story that you are talking about, Anga, being requested by the farmers to capture. So that story suggests that the conflict between humans and elephants is as old as the Angarajya, or let us say, when was this Angarajya's period?
Probably 2000 years. Possibly 2000 plus years.
Achha.
Maybe 2500. We don't know because it's mythology.
It's okay. Yeah.
But Gajasastra probably is about, the lore is about 2000 years.
Okay.
It has been translated into something called the Matanga Leela. That is about 1000 years ago. Somebody called Nilakanta who gives a version of Gajasastra. But Palkapya, sage Palkapya was 2500 years ago.
So the conflict between the humans and elephants over the crop right and over the residential areas right by the elephants and troubling them was there as early as that.
Much older than that, possibly. I would say since the dawn of agriculture.
Okay.
When we started cultivating crops,
okay,
the crops now are very attractive to the elephants.
Well, that's true with any other animal also, for that matter. Even deers might have come and eaten our crops, and wild boars.
They are far more scared than the elephant is, and they would run away. But then you also have the Sangam text from the south. The Sangam poems makes frequent references to elephants crop raiding and how people would sit up a machan on a tree at night and try to guard their fields and chase the elephants from the millet fields. The Sangam texts talk about a male elephant leaving the herd and coming, solitarily to come and raid crops. It's a kind of the pattern that you see today very often. So Sangam texts are also about 2000 years ago.
Okay.
So from about 2000 years, you start getting evidence of crop raiding.
Okay.
But I found something again very interesting in terms of the first visual depiction of elephant-human conflict. First visual depiction.
Where is this?
This is in the Udayagiri caves
Okay.
near Bhubaneswar and Odisha.
I have been there, but I have not seen this.
You go to cave number 2.
Okay.
You will see a panel.
Uh-huh.
In that panel, you will see a herd of elephants with a raised trunk
Okay.
in a slightly aggressive pose. And you will see people with clubs trying to chase these elephants away.
Okay.
So that is, again, the Udayagiri caves go back to, these are Jain cut
Yeah.
temples,
Yeah.
which are 2000 years old.
Yes.
So I think that, from about 2000 years ago, both in terms of text, in terms of lore, and in terms of visual depiction,
And
you
if-
start getting evidence for conflict, crop
If the
raiding.
visual depiction has to be in the stone form, that must have taken a very important, significant position in their society and discussions and interactions.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But interestingly, in the Udayagiri cave, you will find that the people who are chasing these elephants away are mostly women.
Ah,
And people who are riding elephants in other sculptures are also women. So women were mahouts in Jain times in ancient Odisha.
I see.
And they were probably also tasked with guarding the fields at night. They today is mostly the men who go and guard the fields. But 2000 years ago, this task was left to the women possibly to do.
Okay. Now that brings me to another question, rather my own interest. So 2000 years, since 2000 years or even before that, the conflict existed. But as you rightly told, even the moment agriculture began, the conflict might have come about. Has it been recorded spatially also? Let us say, we know elephants are known depicted in Japan, in Cambodia, in Laos, Vietnam. Is this conflicts depicted in those areas also?
I have not come across a depiction in art. There might be ancient texts, textual evidence will be there. Textual evidence is very strong from China.
I see. Okay.
In China, if you really look at the ancient distribution of elephants, several thousand years ago, elephants were found not only in the south like what they are found today, they were found in central China, they were also found in northern China. And over a period of time, the elephant is retreated to the extreme south of the country, to the province of Yunnan, bordering Laos.
And Burma.
To a certain extent.
Okay.
And today, hardly about 200-250 elephants are found in Burma, in China.
China.
Okay. Elephant, I don't think were found in plentiful in the kind of subtropical and temperate climate.
Okay.
But elephants were found.
Okay.
And elephant was considered as an agricultural pest. And the elephant was eliminated over large areas historically.
Okay.
And from ancient Chinese texts, today, we have a better understanding of this process.
And so they also had this problem of conflict, but they never used it in war, perhaps. Did
To a
they?
limited extent, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan. So they did have some elephants in, for use in warfare. But this is an interesting question as to why they did not employ elephants on a large scale like what emperors.
Maybe they didn't have too much of population.
They probably did not have very dense population of elephants.
Okay.
And like the Carthaginians in North Africa, I believe it's not only the Asian elephant that has been tamed, but even the African elephant had been tamed by the Carthaginians. But they were probably relatively small, isolated populations that were overexploited and became extinct in a short period of time. On the other hand, if you really look at the South Asia and Southeast Asia, these are forests with very high carrying capacity for elephants. These are teeming with very large elephant populations.
Why could that be?
It is just the nature of the habitat. You had grasslands, you had the tropical dry forest, you had tropical moist forests. These were the kind of forests that provided the right kind of natural forage for the elephants. And therefore, you had very high carrying capacities.
That reminds me, I was reading about the politics of the Khmer kingdom in Cambodia and Thailand, Siamese. During 13th, 14th century and 12th century, I remember the kings used to now fight for white elephants.
You had the white elephant wars. You had the white elephant wars. It goes back because of the spread of Buddhism in Southeast Asia. The white elephant is a sacred animal. It is the manifestation of the Buddha. And it
For
was
a moment,
supposed
I did not believe that the stories of history I read were true. So white elephants were there.
White elephants were there. It's an albino. It's a very rare genetic mutant
Mm-hmm.
which arises once in a while. Very, very few white elephants were there, probably.
Have you seen any?
I have seen captive white elephant in Myanmar, in Burma.
Okay.
I have seen one.
Please go ahead. So
Yeah. So, white elephant was coveted because it is the manifestation of the Buddha. It is supposed to bring good luck to the king, during wars.
Okay.
And therefore, there were these white elephant wars because these kings coveted the possession of the white elephant.
Yeah.
They would raid each other's elephant stocks to get the white elephant.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting phase in
Yeah.
history.
The one incident I remember is, one king requests the other king to now send some 10 white elephants. This man refuses, and then he wages the war, defeats and takes away 40. So the stories of this kind in Cambodia and
Right.
the elephants were being apparently also chased by using wild boars. You write in some place. That again was very surprising to me. How did they use wild boars to now chase elephants? Or is it a common practice even today?
This goes back to Roman history, where the elephant was used in battle by ancient Romans, and obviously elephant army is a terrifying sight.
Very much.
A huge beast,
Very much, yeah.
and so on. So you have to have counter strategies to this. So one of the strategies that some of the ancient people there kind of thought of was that this will horrify animal rights people or animal welfare people, including myself, in the sense that you tie a group of pigs together, and the squealing pigs, the elephants are afraid, and then you set fire to the pigs. And then you led them against the elephant. Of
My
course,
God.
this would be a terrifying spectacle. So
with
that's
the
how they
fire-
countered the
With the
elephants.
fire,
in the
they
world.
go wild. Elephant or humans, they walk through, and so elephants also.
And the elephants are frightened and they retreat.
Ah.
So this is something that they did.
I saw one photo of yours. I don't know where you shot that in your book of elephant and the wild boar together, one below the other.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that came from one of the museums.
I see.
That came from one of the European museums, probably in Italy, I think.
Okay.
Which is where I got that
see.
photograph from
I
there.
see.
Yeah.
In another place, you write that Egyptians also had elephants. To me, that was surprising because Egypt, the moment we imagine, a common man imagines Egypt as a desert. But if elephants have to be there in Egypt, was there such a, in fact, you write along the Nile River, the elephants were there.
No. Egyptians did not have elephants.
Acha.
There was King Thutmose who received a tribute of elephants
Oh,
from the Syrians.
acha.
Okay. Now, there is only one, to the best of my knowledge, if you visit all the Egyptian monuments and so on and so forth, which I have not done so far.
Okay.
But there is one particular monument which recently my daughter went to Egypt.
Okay.
And I told her about it, and she went and she got a picture of this panel for me.
Uh-huh.
There's only one depiction of an elephant ever in any Egyptian monument.
Okay. Where
And
did she
it's
get this?
is the tomb of King Thutmose.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay, and in which people are bringing tribute.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Okay.
the tomb of tomb of Rekhmeyer.
Okay.
The tomb of Rekhmeyer in Egypt.
Okay.
And there are people bringing tributes of animals. So one of the panels shows a giraffe being brought, obviously from some place in Africa, and another in which there's a young elephant being led, and it's an Asian elephant
Acha.
being given as a tribute to the king.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the Nile, you probably had elephants, African elephants, in the upper reaches of the Nile.
Okay.
But they were beyond the Egyptian kingdom. That is the kingdom of Miro.
Okay.
And there you have sculptural depictions of the elephants today, if you go to the desert there. But that was a little beyond the Egyptian kingdom. But in Egypt itself, the Egyptian,
Pharaohs,
what we know, classical Egypt,
Yeah.
there's only one depiction of an elephant. And it was an Indian elephant or a Syrian
Gifted
elephant
by
that was
someone.
given as a tribute.
Tribute. Okay. When I was reading through your book, I felt very happy to see this paragraph where you state that India is the first country to now have actually tamed the elephant. India has the highest population. India has this, ancient predominance or importance given for Gajavanas. and India is the place where monographs are written on. So apparently India seems to be the nucleus of elephant biology in the past and elephant populations in the past. Is that true even today in the terms of populations?
Yeah, in terms of definitely in terms of the elephant culture, all indications are that the elephant culture, as we know today, you know, the basically arose in our subcontinent.
Okay.
You know, starting with the taming of the elephant, you know, in the Harappan period, and then all the subsequent, you know, adoption of elephant as a sacred symbol in Buddhism, then in Hinduism, you know, the use of elephants in armies. But it was not necessarily only confined to India. This is a culture that spread to Southeast Asia. So you go to Thailand and you go to Cambodia and so on at later periods. In fact, even Ganesha reached Cambodia as early as the 7th century. So there is kind of an export of Indian culture,
Okay.
you know, it also went into Tibet through the vehicle of Buddhism, you know, and Tibet, China, Korea, Japan.
Okay.
So you have a form of Ganesha in Japan called Kangi Ten, where you have a male and a female Ganesha, you know, joined together, you know. So it's a very different interpretation of Ganesha there.
I see.
Ganesha went to Indonesia, but you know, one interpretation of Ganesha in Indonesia was that of the tantric elephant or the tantric Ganesha. Ganesha was not thought of as a benevolent Ganesha that we know of in India today, but as a tantric, as a malevolent creature.
Okay.
You know, if you go to the museum in Jakarta, just behind the entrance, you will get a massive Ganesha seated on a bed of human skulls.
Oh my God.
Very, very interesting. So how do you interpret that? You know,
Okay.
so it is a tantric form of Ganesha.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so in many ways, yes, what you say is right. In the textual also, with the Gajasastra, the Arthasastra, Manasolosa, Hasti Ayurveda is from Assam. You know, Hasti Vidyarnava is from Assam. And that is about the 16th century or 17th century. A lot of very detailed descriptions about elephants and so on and so forth. But you also have a thriving elephant culture in Sri Lanka.
Acha. Oh.
In Sri Lanka, you go to Anuradhapura, you know, there are both in the Mahavamsa, the Kulavamsa, you have mentioned, you know, references to elephants. You have depiction of elephants in, you know, in many monuments in Sri Lanka and so on. So this is a culture that started in our subcontinent, you know, India, and then spread to other parts of the world.
Okay. Well, in fact, coming to the spread of the culture as referring, you know, the recent Dalrymple's book of Golden Road, which tells that the Indonesia, coming to Indonesia, this tantric you told of Ganesha, that's, you know, brings to me the memory of the fact that a tantric Buddhist went from India to Indonesia and constructed the Borobudurs, the biggest temple of Buddhism. He was a tantric, incidentally, who was trained in Nalanda and went to
Java.
From there he goes to China also.
And then he goes to China from there. You know, Borobudur is a fantastic monument. You know, it has more than 1,000 panels or bas reliefs depicting the entire life history of the Buddha.
Okay.
Entire life history of the Buddha.
Okay.
See, one of the reasons I was very interested in Borobudur was looking at the panels, examining them to see if they only depict captive elephants or do they also depict wild elephants.
Okay.
Were there wild elephants in Java?
Yeah.
You know, or not in the past? Of course, you know, when you look at panels that depict the life history of the Buddha, all the elephants are captive elephants and very realistically depicted. You know, these are not people who had not seen a wild elephant or not seen a real elephant.
Okay.
Like sometimes in European depictions, you will get very bizarre, you know, forms of an elephant, you know, not resembling a real elephant. Okay. It's all hearsay kind of sketches or sculptures or whatever.
Okay.
But here it's very realistic. So whoever inspired, whoever sculpted this had a knowledge of the elephant, no doubt. But then I also found there are 2 or 3 panels where very clearly they were showing natural scenes of trees, of forests, of monkeys, of elephant and so on. So in all likelihood, wild elephants were also found in Java at that time.
Okay.
You know, so that was of great interest to me. So, you know, many years ago when I kind of was researching for this book,
Yeah.
on the cultural history.
Yeah. I also saw Borobodur's, individual elements and figures. There is fantastic carving there. And obviously they cannot miss elephant because Buddha's life is linked so much to the elephant or the white elephant.